You're listening to This Motorcycle Life, conversations about why we ride. Episode 7, Linguine with Clams. I'm Bruce Philp. Thanks for listening. Well, I hope you brought your appetite for this one, because this episode turned out to be a generous helping of motorcycling soul food. For me, anyway. And I hope for you, too. We'll get to that in a moment, but first, some important business. I want to acknowledge the promotional support of my friends at Eat, Sleep, Ride. Well, this episode might be the only time we ever focus on the eating part of that excellent advice. The stories in these podcasts are about riders like you and me, and Eat, Sleep, Ride is a great place to meet them. You can discover this online magazine and community at eatsleepride.com. And as an avid user, I can recommend you download their super useful free mobile app at your preferred app store. I never ride without it. Thanks, guys. Okay, here we go. The little town near where I live is a bit of a mecca for motorcyclists in this part of the country. On any sunny weekend from May to October, you'll see the streets lined with bikes of every description. It doesn't hurt that there's some good riding to be had around here, but the attraction for stopping in this particular place is really all about the food. Riders pause here to refuel themselves as well as their bikes, but also to buff up the tails of their morning rides, plan the afternoon, indulge in a little bench racing, admire strangers' bikes, and sometimes turn those strangers into friends. Well, food does that for people, turns them into family. And one snowy afternoon, as I was driving through town pining for the glint of sunshine on chrome, it occurred to me that this is especially true for motorcyclists. It can't be a coincidence that from the Ace Cafe to the Rock Store, some of motorcycling's most famous shrines started out as places to eat. Well, this might have remained nothing more than an idle thought had I not coincidentally received a note of encouragement from a listener named Guy Arnone, who just happens to spend a lot of his time pondering this very thing. Guy is the executive sous-chef at a restaurant called Babbo. It's kind of an institution in New York's Greenwich Village, so his food credentials are impeccable. But he's also a rider and a motovlogger, sharing wisdom and the view from the saddle of his Moto Guzzi while dodging Manhattan traffic. His vlog is called Meat and Motorcycles, named for the only two things Guy Arnone says he ever thinks about. Well, I just had to meet him. And here, with a brief introduction from Guy's Jack Russell Terrier, is our conversation. Hey, Guy.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm good. It's a snowy day in New York City, so kind of sad looking at the bike.
Yeah, we got one of those here too. Mine are all covered up now because, it's December and it's Canada. So hopefully this increases my podcast audience.
Yes.
So, look, thanks a lot for taking the time to talk to me today and sacrificing some of your precious time off. You've got
I'm a big fan of your podcast, so this is an honor. I'm very excited to do this.
You're too kind. I know you got a super high pressure job, which we're going to talk a bit about, I guess. But I do appreciate you giving me the time, and thanks for being a listener. That's awesome.
My pleasure.
So, look, I'm gonna sort of throw one right up the middle, if I'm using that baseball term correctly, and just ask you like the big question: what do motorcycles and food have to do with each other?
Oh man, how much time do we have? It's on the surface, probably not. I know for me, there's a lot of connections just in my daily life. I work in a busy kitchen, work my way up to executive sous chef, and there's a lot of problem solving that has to go into my job. And when you're on a motorcycle, there's problem solving to be had too, especially if you have a vintage bike, or in my case an Italian bike, you're going to have to figure some stuff out as you go. Cooking, when you start, you're not that good at it, professionally anyway. And the same goes for motorcycles, I think. It takes some time to kind of get a feel for it. You make some mistakes, hopefully, not too bad on a motorcycle. You burn some stuff. Maybe you crash. I've crashed before in spectacular fashion in New York City. You know, you in a professional kitchen, you know, you have your mentors. You know, you have people that have been doing it a while that kind of take pity on you in the beginning and watch you make your stupid mistakes. Sometimes they let you go ahead and make those so you learn. I know there's been plenty of chefs, and in my case, butchers. I started out as a whole animal butcher, and you know, they kind of walked me through the process. You know, and if you have a good mentor in cooking, it makes the difference, and the stuff they teach you is going to stay with you. And the same goes for, you know, a good motorcycle mentor. I think we've all got that friend who's been riding a long time, or if you have the luck to have a good mechanic friend that kind of will tell you, okay, next time you take that turn, you know, try and take it from here, or do this with your body, or, you know, if this thing breaks, maybe, you know, don't freak out. It's easy. They can show you how to make it better, how to make it easier, how to make it more enjoyable. So, you know, those are the basics for me of how they connect. When you're cooking, you can kind of get into a zone, and it can be therapeutic. The work can kind of, if you've got a lot of stuff going on, you always have work. You always have the kitchen, and you really can't think about anything else in a busy kitchen. And the downside of being in a busy kitchen is it's a high adrenaline business. And when you get out of there, you know, most of the young cooks, they like to go and hit the bar, and I can't blame them, because cooks tend to be a lot of fun to hang around with. But for me, when I get done with a busy shift, day or night, you know, and I get on the bike, it forces me to focus again and only think about what I'm doing on the motorcycle. And so those two things kind of play off each other very well, because both require focus, both have an adrenaline aspect, but also there's a meditative and a really kind of a calming part for me.
Yeah,
that takes place.
That makes sense. I mean, that's language you hear riders use a lot. This idea of of kind of wiping everything else out of your mind and focusing on the thing you're doing. And I like the parallel, in terms of apprenticeship and. And frankly, there's danger. There are people who would say that I am as dangerous with a wrench as anyone is with a knife. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how you are with that stuff, but
yeah, no one's good in the beginning. No one's good in the beginning, and it takes time, and it's a lot of, and you know what? It's a lot of muscle memory. And so, you know, you are able to just not do things with your eyes closed, but just the repetitive motion of it. You know, the first time you try to figure out popping a clutch or working the gears on a motorcycle, it's not pretty, but pretty soon you don't even realize you're doing. And the same goes for cooking. When I learned how to, be a butcher, it was all muscle memory. It was just, you learn to move your hands, you learn the feel, you learn as you go, and you're not good in the beginning, but pretty soon it becomes second nature.
Yeah. So the parallels make a ton of sense to me. I guess the two activities kind of help you keep those muscles, those mental muscles kind of in tune. But but they also sort of literally go together, right? I mean, I think when we talked the other day, you said that the thing food does for motorcycling above all is give you a destination, which I thought was a great insight. And that's something I guess food does for people no matter how they travel, isn't it? It gives travel a purpose.
Yeah, when you're on the bike, I love going out for a ride just as much as any rider does. And going out with a group of riders is always fun. But, maybe it's just my nature, but I can get a little antsy in a group ride. But if we're just going out to ride and kind of stop here and talk about what we just did, and then we'll go ride around in another circle. And it's great to get out and to be on the bike, but I prefer having a destination. Whether we're going to some barbecue place 30 miles away, or even just going to get some coffee. It's kind of, where you're headed. And then it has that communal aspect when you get there, whether you're with people or you're by yourself. I've gotten out of the city one morning and I thought I'm going to go up the Hudson River and just have a nice ride and a cup of coffee. And what was, going to be my time to myself, got to the coffee shop, and of course, someone comes out, "Oh, is that a Moto Guzzi?" And then we start talking, and pretty soon, my destination is turned into making new friends.
Right.
and which is, again, it's really funny because, I got the bike because I liked that quiet time by myself. And I've met so many nice people that have become my friends because of this motorcycle that I wanted, so I could be antisocial. And the same goes in kitchens, because cooks, generally speaking, are kind of loners and not the best people. But then once you get us all together in the same room, you would think we've been brothers and sisters forever.
Right.
Because it's just, we speak the same language. You can meet a cook, you can put two cooks together in a room, and pretty soon they're going to be talking about their day. They'll ask their preliminary questions about what they do, what station they work, how many covers or how many dinners they do in a night. And once they get that out of the way to size each other up, then the party's on. And the same goes for people on bikes. You meet them. How many times have you been out and someone just walks up to, "Oh, a motorcycle. Yeah, I had one like that." Or, "Oh, I got two of those." And pretty soon, you're friends. It doesn't matter. You may never even know the person's name.
Yeah.
But you're buddies now.
And they assume you're friends, especially if you ride a bike that's a bit of a vintage looking thing, which yours is. And I want to ask you about your bike later on. But the same with my Triumph. Like, you'll get guys come up to you who are, 20 or more years older than you are, maybe don't ride anymore, and they just assume you're going to be their friend because you share that, and you kind of are, right?
It's the motorcycles are a great friendship vetting process. If you've got the bike, okay, you're probably pretty cool.
That's right. How bad
gets a lot of that out of the way.
That's right. So I'm thinking about, you mentioned the riding out of the city and going to a coffee shop and suddenly meeting a bunch of new friends, and that. So I ride alone most of the time, and I have places like that I like to go for the same purpose. And so tell me if this resonates for you. You get off the bike, you put on a kickstand, you take off your helmet, you walk in, and you kind of clomp through the restaurant in your riding gear, and you feel like everybody's looking at you. And it makes you a little bit self-conscious, but mostly in a good way. And then you sit down and order. And then I have this like vain, kind of self-conscious doubt that it matters what I'm going to order. So in other words, it's cool if I'm that guy and I just clomped through the restaurant and sat down and I order a hamburger, or if I order, an apple pie and a cup of coffee. But if I was to order calamari or a misto salad or quiche, it somehow doesn't fit. And so I guess I want to know, because I'm not going to get to talk to a lot of motorcycle riding chefs in my life probably. In your professional opinion, is there an official food for riding a motorcycle?
Ooh, that's a great question. Yeah, you don't want to walk in your gear and then order a parfait. That's not the coolest
right.
thing to order. A lot of it is about the delivery method, I would say. So if you got the jacket and the gear and you've been riding, I'm an Italian chef, so it's all Italian to me. I don't have an interest in, I love eating other cuisines, but for me, I love cooking spaghetti. But if I'm geared up, a big sloppy bowl of spaghetti might not be the best thing for me. So it's about the delivery method. So You're looking at hamburgers, hot dogs, a sandwich, something you can eat with your hand, a rib. Because there's no knives and forks and all the accoutrement that goes in with eating, but when you can sit down and just have a solid burger and some fries, so stuff you can eat with your hands, I would say would be the most motorcycle, I don't want to say motorcycle friendly, but motorcycle appropriate food.
Right. That intuitively, that just makes sense to me. Now, but you also have ridden in Italy, and you have a favorite road. I think you said from Florence to Siena, or if I have that right.
Yes. So,
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you finish.
I was just going to say, so is the official food of motorcycling different there? I mean, you said pasta probably wouldn't be your first choice here, but in Italy?
In Italy, so I worked for a very famous butcher named Dario Cecchini in this little town of Panzano in Chianti. It's a town of about 900 people, and it's at the top of this hill overlooking this beautiful valley where they make all the Chianti, and it sits in between Florence and Siena. And it sits right on this road called the Via Chiantigiana. So if anybody out there is going to Italy and they're going to be in Tuscany, just rent the bike, just avert to your regular vacation plans, get a bike and ride that road. It's got twisties and it's got sweepers, and it's just, you'll go from vineyards to forest to just rolling, just meadows and back into grapevines. It's just the most mind-blowing road. And so you go out there, and Italian motorcycling is a little different, but the same. You stop, you get your espresso, and then you get your, but again, it's about the delivery method. So in Tuscany, they have this sandwich called the lampredotto. The lampredotto, which my wife will never try again, but I love it. It's really best enjoyed at about 2 a.m. But it's a tripe sandwich, basically. But you go up to these little carts, and you get this tripe, and they boil it until it's really, really tender. And then they put this kind of a spicy, like a salsa verde on it of herbs and olive oil, and they put that on bread, and you stand there with your kind of sandwich wrapped in paper, and you have to eat it when it's ripping hot, because if it cools down, the flavor can be a little too intense. But you eat this, and you'll have your little plastic cup of table wine, and it's just the best thing you've ever had. And you see these guys on this road every Sunday. They'd be out there having that, or just having a porchetta sandwich. So it's a pork belly wrapped around, kind of like a deboned pig wrapped around itself and roasted. And they'll put it in bread. And you just sit there and you eat this, just what could be the greatest thing you've ever had. And at any New York City restaurant, you could sell them for lots of dollars. But you're on the bike and you're in the country and it's quiet and you're eating this sandwich and you're having a glass of wine and you're staring at your bike and, you're talking to some other guy about his bike. And yeah, it's just the coolest. It's really the coolest thing. And the funny thing, last spring, I went to Lake Como in the north of Italy and went to the Moto Guzzi factory. And Lake Como is another place really where you should ride. It's just the most beautiful lake with the Alps and all of these villas and beautiful roads and tunnels. And so there's just bike after bike and all kinds of bikes. And the Italians love their Harley Davidsons, but they don't make them really loud. They like the quiet of the ride. Right. But you'll get these big guys in their Harley and all of their regalia, the vest and the patches and the chaps, and they're goatees, very scary looking guys. But then if it's a nice warm day, it's still Italy, so they'll get off the bike and then they'll go and have get some gelato. And there are these two guys on my motovlog. I did an episode about my trip to Lake Como, and there's these two guys just going to town on these ice cream cones, and it's like, no matter how tough you look, when you're sitting there licking an ice cream cone in your Harley Davidson, you just don't look as tough as you just did a minute when you got off the bike.
What a great picture. That's awesome. It's so true.
The whole facade crumbled. There's this guy just enjoying strawberry gelato.
That's fantastic. It is a little more delicate than a burrito, but if you're riding a Harley in Italy, I guess you're entitled to order whatever you want for. Yeah, that's cool.
But you don't want to get it on you, because then you got to finish your, and you got food on you, and then at the next stop, you just look like a mess, right? Like you hit something.
Yeah. Yeah. See, these little details that non-riders just can't appreciate. Yeah, I get that. So you talked earlier about the benefit of riding to decompress after a day in the kitchen, and I think lots of
Uh-huh.
people ride to to decompress. So I can kind of relate to that, and I'm sure lots of people can relate to that. But I've watched some of your vlogs, and you're riding in New York City. It's hard for me to understand how riding in Manhattan could be a way to let off steam. Tell me a bit about how riding fits into your day.
It's that's a good point. It's still New York City, so you have to be on your toes. But once you get down to the understanding of the ebbs and flows and how the cabs move and how the pedestrians and the bicycles and everything kind of plays, everyone's kind of jockeying for position. It's a real estate game on the streets. But my day is kind of crazy. I think the best way to put working at my job, it's like taking the movie Life is Beautiful and cutting the first 20 minutes off and replacing it with Saving Private Ryan. Just the first 20 minutes of the battle scene.
Right.
And then somehow mix in Groundhog's Day. So, it's high pressure. And it's a great kitchen to be in. We're a really good team and we all work really hard. And that's why I wanted to be in that kitchen, because everyone was exceptional, but we put a lot on ourselves and we demand a lot of ourselves. So it's a constant pressure, and there's always things going wrong, things breaking, you're running out of things. You've got a new cook that you're kind of keeping an eye on, making sure they don't burn stuff. And so you're problem solving all day. And so, and then if you're lucky enough to stick around to ascend to like a management role, like a sous chef or an executive chef, pretty soon all day people are coming to you with a situation, a problem, a question. So your name is just becomes, like a Pavlovian, like Pavlov's dog. Every time you hear your name, you're just like, oh, what now? And so you get through all that. And, on the best of days, the best thing that's going to happen is it was a smooth service. Didn't have any problems in the dining room. No food came back and everyone worked as a great team, but it's still just getting to that point. It takes its toll, and you're burned or you've got a cut, and you're not the happiest person. So when you get on the bike, even if it's New York City, it's still your time. No one's asking you for anything. And you just go, and you've been dealing with problems and things are popping up and oil splashing in your face and somebody's dropping something, and you've been doing it all day. So I guess dodging a taxi or a bicyclist is kind of the least of my worries at that point of the day.
And then you're talking in your helmet while you're doing that. That just blows me away.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if that helps me focus more. I don't know. The jury's still out on that one.
It's funny. A few years ago, I used to go to New York on a regular basis, and I worked out of a temporary office space there. And there was a guy who shared that same space who came to work on a Ducati Sport Classic. And
nice.
I just thought, you are the coolest human being I have ever seen. And I want to be
right?
right. So I want to be you. And so that image kind of stuck with me. And I think you were telling me the other day that you are not the only chef in New York City that rides a motorcycle. It sounds like it's a bit of a thing. Tell me about that.
There are a few of us. So, whether it's, you get a lot of chefs on scooters. There's a lot of chefs that ride bikes, and I think it's for the exact same reasons that I enjoy riding my bike. And so, that's another thing too. When you're talking and meeting another chef, it's full of food talk, and you're talking work. And there was a chef. His name's Wade, from a restaurant called Rosemary's in New York City, and we worked together when I first came to New York. At Italy, Wade Moises. I hope I'm saying his last name right. And we were outside talking about work, and somebody rode by on a Ducati Street Fighter, and we both heard it and stopped our conversation, and our heads turned to just get a glimpse of it, just to see it. And that's a total tell for a motorcyclist, because you will, I know I do, and you hear a bike, you stop what you're doing and you turn to look, even if it's maybe a bike that's not your style of bike, but you still want to just try to sneak a peek.
Yeah, of course.
And I remember we both stopped and we both looked at the bike and we both ran by, and then it started a whole new conversation, a whole new friendship, because, okay, we've established we like cooking, but now we've just found out we both like bikes. And it's the same story of, oh man, yeah, I just want to get out of work and get on the bike. It's the weekend. I got one day off. Getting 2 days back to back is rare in a kitchen. So you get that one day. How are you going to use it? You got to do your laundry with part of that day, but yeah, I'm going to use the rest of it to go ride the bike. And so it's not uncommon if you dig a little deeper into the chef world. We like our bikes. We do like our bikes.
I guess your whole, kind of threshold for danger changes a bit if you're all around, hot fat and knives all day. That's the only explanation I could think of, because I just get I kind of get freaked out watching your vlog sometimes, thinking I don't think I could ride and talk in that city, but it sure looks cool.
Well, my job now, I've ascended to executive sous, so we make sure the food gets made, we make sure it all comes in, but when it's time to open the doors, then I'm there as kind of, the conductor, and I'm telling everybody what to make and when the orders come in. So I'm multitasking and talking and trying to do several things. That's kind of that's the goal for any cook, whether you're a chef or just a line cook. You have to have a couple of things going. If you've only got 1.5 things going at once, and that's the best you can do, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
If you can get up to good 4 or 5 things going at one time, and you can start to, it's called auditory cooking. When you can get to the point where you can hear the change from onions in a hot pan a second ago to onions that are starting to caramelize, or the change of the sound of a steak on the grill when it's starting to overcook. When you have that internal timer, because I remember I have something in there, and it's always the second before your timer goes off, you've done it right.
Right.
Because your instinct is kicking in. It's kind of the same thing. And then, hey, there's plenty of days where I have great footage of me not saying a thing or just swearing a lot. But sometimes if I start talking about stuff and it just kind of goes, it doesn't feel unnatural at all, or I don't feel that I'm not as focused as I should be. Sometimes I feel like I'm a little more focused if I'm talking, because my mind will start to wander and you start daydreaming, and next thing you know, you're not looking.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I've had people tell me that, and I have to confess, I've done this myself from time to time, that they'll sing in their helmets or, talk to themselves in their helmets, but, and it is kind of focusing, but, I don't know about talking to an audience. That's pretty awesome. And I'm going to ask you about your vlog, in a couple minutes, but I just want to stay on the kitchen thing for a minute. I think that, everybody who's ever tried to explain why they ride always eventually ends up on this theme of, connectedness, of being, kind of in the movie instead of just watching a movie through the windshield, as it were. And lots of people smarter than me have written about it. I love the quote from Zen in The Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, where he says that, the sense of presence is overwhelming. And it seemed like when we spoke the other day, you take this almost to another level, because you told me that you will sometimes ride out to the country to the places where your food is sourced, and you choose to take the bike. Tell me about that.
Well, it's kind of that thing where it's, having the destination is always great. And, you meet so many great people working in the food business, and for a chef, a lot of times, and if you have the ability to get really good ingredients and really, specialized stuff, and you can spend a little more money sometimes on some of these, more artisanal items, you start to build friendships and relationships with some of these people. And there's people that I would talk to on the phone for years, every day, and order my food, and then have some small talk, and then I move on to the next guy, and it would dawn on me, it's like I've never met this person, and I talk to them every day, and they know what's going on in my life, and it gets to the point where they'll call you ahead of time because, you know what, something bad happened at the farm, or we had some weather, or something didn't come in, or, hey, our machine broke and we couldn't make the goat yogurt, at the goat farm.
Right.
And oh, sorry, man. So pretty soon you're like, okay, I got a day. The weather's great. And you start going, well, how far away are you? Well, we're just this far. It's a couple of hours. And you drive to me every 2 days to deliver this stuff, and then you drive back. Yeah. Okay, well, maybe I'll come out and visit sometime. And so finally it'll line up, and you're like, no, I'm going to go. And so, I'll hop on the bike and I'll go and I'll visit these people and these farms, and whether it's produce or it's animals or seafood even, it's a way to, one, get out, decompress, be on the bike. But then as you get closer to where it is that they work, you start to take in their surroundings. And, as you know, on a motorcycle, you're taking in the smells, you're taking in the climate, you're really seeing more than you would in a car or by bus or by train. You get to where they are and you see their world, and you see the hard work that they go through. You see what it takes to produce the product that we want so much. And you see a different side of them. You see their reaction in their face, if they light up with joy when they're talking about what they do, if they're talking about, if they had a bad season, if there's bad weather, if maybe some of the animals, the animals get sick. And a lot of times, these guys don't have the money to be organic certified, but they're all natural. There's no hormones or antibiotics. So that means, if an animal gets sick, what are you going to do with it? Yeah. So you'll start to connect with them on that level, and you see like, oh, they're going through a lot. This is hard work. What I'm doing is easy. I just have to put it in the pan and kind of bark at people about how to do it right. But, this is their life. This is their work, and they could, a bad year could make or break them. And so you've gone out, you've separated yourself from your world on the bike. You've taken in their surroundings. You've seen firsthand what they're dealing with. And then you've got the long ride home to process it all, internalize it, kind of think about what you're doing and what they're doing. And it's been a great way for me to get a better understanding, a better grasp of the materials that I work with, and communicate that a little bit to the other cooks that aren't going to go there. Maybe they're young cooks, and they just want to come and cook and then go hang out with their buddies and party. But if I can kind of explain a little bit more of what these people are going through, or straight up just tell the kid, don't burn this goat because it's, I saw this goat when it was walking around. If you burn it, we're going to have a conversation.
Right.
I'll be devastated, and I can't handle that devastation. And so it's been a great way. The Northeast is great because the bounty is all over, and the areas from upstate New York up in the Berkshires and Massachusetts, you can go south into Virginia. There's a lot of great produce, meat and fish, and just great stuff that's being made by hardworking people. And if you had a chance to get out there on a motorcycle, it's rewarding. It's a little bit more than just that trip. It's not the big road trip, but it's something that you can do. It's different to go on a trip like that on your bike instead of just your, going up to the mountain to ride the twisties and come back and talk about it.
Yeah.
For me, it's more rewarding. And I come back very energized.
I love the image of it, and I love the sense of purpose of it. I live in farm country also, and so I can kind of visualize the experience you're having. But for you to do that, having been a butcher and being a chef, it must be intensely personal. But what kind of reception do you get when you roll in the driveway? I mean, are they expecting to see a guy on a bike?
Oh, they're excited to see anybody. They're just happy to see a person. No, for them, they will just roll out the dusty red carpet for you because, again, they're working hard and they're so excited that you're buying their stuff for use in a restaurant. But, very few of us actually make it up there. So it's very appreciative when you make the trip. And it just, yeah, You know, and you don't have to be a chef either. There's a lot of great stuff all over the country that you can go and say, okay, where's this stuff come from? And call them up and ask them, can I come and visit? And almost always they'll say, sure, come on over. Why?
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, and again, I mean, as I said, I love this idea that it gives a purpose to a ride, because I do get that. I mean, the first few years that I rode, I considered every ride to be practice, but I really am at the point now where I want an objective, if you like, not in the sense of achieving something, but in the sense of just kind of making life better in some way. And this sounds like a pretty cool way to do it. So I was very fascinated by the stuff that you've said about the culture of the restaurant business, and I actually sort of fact checked this with my wife, who worked in that business for a while. This idea that and she confirmed it, that there is a brotherhood and sisterhood in the restaurant business that has deep parallels to the one in motorcycling. And you talked a little bit about that at the beginning of our conversation. That there's a lot in common there. You know, starting with this sense of instant family that you were talking about. Can you give us more of a peek into that world? How else are these cultures alike?
Well, you know, in a kitchen, it's not a 9-to-5 job, and it's very collaborative. It's you are relying on the people that are around you, and so you go through, you know, every day you go through some ups and downs. You get in, you have your coffee, how's everybody doing? You talk about your weekend. Then you kind of start your job and your work, and you tell some jokes, and you know, it's always been a very happy place. I haven't worked in too many dark kitchens. I worked in some, but everyone's just pretty much happy to be there. And, you know, we spend more time together at work than we do with our families. So you kind of have to get along. And so you'll go through a really busy night, and you'll go through some nights you get beat up, and maybe one guy's having a rough night, but you'll jump in there and help him out. And you do that over time. I've been in the kitchen I'm in now for 6 years, and these guys are like my brothers. And then the same goes for if you go on a trip, or you go on an event and you meet chefs from other restaurants. Again, you size each other up with your questions, but pretty soon the party started. You know, once you've kind of established that, we're in that same weird world together. You got a screw loose, but it's the same screw that I've got loose.
Right.
You're enough said. You know, you're friends, and I have got some friends that I've made, and we're close, and we talk, and you know, we know what's going on with each other, but maybe we see each other once a year, or not even twice a year. Because, you know, we met at an event that we were doing, and somebody had to travel somewhere to do some food, but we had such a good time that we keep in contact. And I may have another chef friend that works 2 blocks over from me, and I'll see him just as frequently as I see the guy that works in Memphis, because the job that we have, we all work the same hours, but we keep in touch with each other, and we talk. And when we do get to hang out, it's like no time passed at all. And so you pretty soon, as you stay in the business long enough, and if you're fortunate to be in a restaurant that's, you know, an exciting restaurant, you start meeting people, and you start having friends all over the country and all over the world, you know, that are doing the same thing. And when you go and you take vacations, you go and you try to stop in and visit your buddy that you made.
Right.
And you go to Italy, I stop into the kitchen to see my other friend that I met when I did an event for Italian food in Las Vegas. There's also a guy from Nashville that I met. And, you know, I got to see how that guy's doing. It's just, it's a very, very cool community to be in. And the same goes for motorcycles. The people that I've met that love bikes, whether they're in food or not, you talk to each other for a few minutes, and then, you know, that's it. With the vlog, it's been really neat because, you know, I've made friends in the UK and Australia and all over the world. You know, they leave a comment, and I answer the comment, and pretty soon, I've never met this person, but we're speaking the same language. They seem like a pretty cool person. I don't know. I've never met them, but again, they've passed that litmus test of, okay, you've got a bike, so we're buddies.
Right. Yeah. And it's more than just meeting them, isn't it? I mean, it's the fact, and I guess this is where the parallel is with restaurant life. It's the fact that you've shared this it's the intensity of the experience that creates that bond. A bit like your Saving Private Ryan reference earlier. And do the two things sort of cross pollinate? I mean, I've talked to people who do things like making films or stuff like that, where the work is, comes in sort of intense bursts, and they talk about being able to use the skills they've learned on the bike to cope with that situation, or vice versa, skills that they've learned in their work that make them, better riders. Do you see that kind of cross pollination in your work?
Yeah. When you're in the kitchen and something bad happens, whether, maybe it's an oven breaks, or I've had a night where the plumbing broke and water was coming out of the light fixtures onto the people.
Oh man. Oh God.
Yeah. And, the greener manager who was, on duty for this night, where everybody just got up from the table, walked to the door, and started, twittering. Just like, we got to close. We got to close.
Yeah.
They're like, we got to close down. And I'm coming out of the kitchen. Absolutely not. There's no way we're closing. Like, well, we can't work like this. We'll fix it. And there were, we stopped cooking. There were cooks out there with, aprons on the ground trying to sop everything up. Like, you just don't quit. When you come across a broken down motorcycle, you stop and you help the guy or girl, and you figure it out, and you just go, I don't know. Good luck. You stick around and you're going to figure it out, because it's fixable. Or it might be just, we'll hang out until the tow truck gets here.
Right.
That's just kind of what you do. So that helps. Creativity. Yeah. You make the same food every day, it can get a little stale. And sometimes the bike helps you kind of clear your mind, but then you'll have these creative moments where all of a sudden, like, okay, I've got an idea. Let's try this. And you're having your friends in the kitchen taste it and giving you their input, so you can make changes. And the same is on the bike. You get on your bike every day. I commute on it every day. And sometimes it's just the bike, or sometimes a little aggravated, sometimes a little touchy. Maybe something broke again, the same thing. I got to fix it again. But then you'll go out on a ride, or even maybe just coming home from work, and you hit the green lights just right. And all of a sudden, oh God, I love this bike again.
Right.
I'm sorry, I got mad at you. And so you kind of have you have a little renaissance with this bike that you've maybe been cursing at, but it got you through it.
Right.
It got you through it.
The best girlfriend you ever had. Yeah. I get it. So I want to ask you about Meat and Motorcycles. So it's a vlog, and I'm going to share a link in the show notes for people who don't know about it and want to follow you. So it's a video blog, but it's also the name of a caper that you are planning, right?
Yes. So I guess, like, to go back to, having all these friends that I've met all over the country now. I've met all these really cool people. I came to New York City to be a butcher after working in Italy, and I was the opening butcher at a place called Italy here in New York City. And I worked my way up. I went into the kitchens, and you do a lot of events, so you go out and you have it'd be like, meatball madness, and then everyone's got to go make meatballs, and there's 20 chefs there, and they bring their crew, and then you party afterwards. And you just kind of slowly start to make these friends. Maybe they were from out of town, or maybe you worked with them for a year in a kitchen and they went on their own way, and, you're not going to work together probably ever again, but you kept friends, and slowly the network started building. And I thought, wow, I've always wanted to go cross country. And, I think we've all seen, The Long Way Round.
Right.
And like, oh man, I got to do that. I don't know if I can handle Siberia, but I could probably get to California from here. So I was like, you know what? I'm turning 40. Let's do it. I'm going to go cross country, but I don't want to just do this. I made it from one end to the other. Like, I'm going to take the opportunity to go see my friends. So that's how it started. And I was like, oh, and if I film it, that'll be fun, because it'll be a good memory of it. And once you get off the bike and you sit down for dinner and you have a couple, drinks with a couple cooks, it's usually a pretty funny night. We look mean on the outside, but we're pretty funny people. So it's like, okay, so we're going to do this. And I'm like, who wouldn't want to watch that? Who wouldn't want to watch something about meat and motorcycles? And I said, oh, there it is, meat and motorcycles. So, okay. I told my wife about it and told a couple of my friends. My wife's like, well, no, you've got to do it. That's a great idea. And just do it. Even if it does nothing, at least I'll shut up about it, So I said, okay, well, I got to, kind of figure this thing out. And I saw a lot of other great motovloggers and people doing some cool stuff on YouTube. So I'm like, I think I can do this. And it's New York City. So, it's at least it'll look interesting. I got the camera and kind of figured out how to get it on the helmet, and it kind of just started. And then, the first few are hard to watch now for me, but it's all been practicing for this cross country ride. And, I want to bring my butcher friends with me. That I started in New York City with, and they've moved away. And so we're going to have them, try and come back, and then we'll start out and we're going to do it. And they're, holding my feet to the fire on it too, man. They're not letting me get out of it. It's like, I don't know, it might get busy. Work's busy. You know how that goes. And they're like, nope, we don't care. So
yeah, you got to go. You got to go. I
save up my vacation time and make it happen.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. And I think the vlog in the meantime is kind of fun too. I guess wisdom is where you find it, but there are lots of great moments in there. We talked the other day about using meat thermometers, and I thought, we could be talking about torque wrenches. It kind of, the same principle applies. You said something about, good chef can tell when a steak is done by touching it, but a great chef uses a thermometer. And I thought, that could be a torque wrench.
There's the hand trick. The hand trick is I love that one. People are just like, you just touch your hand right by your thumb and your index finger, and the meat there, and then you squeeze your hand a little, and that's medium. It's what? I don't understand. Whatever, dude. Just how much you spend on that piece of meat. Yeah, I guess you could tell if it's probably close, but a great chef uses a thermometer. Just stick it in there and it'll tell you exactly where you're at.
Right.
If I'm going to poke a hole in anything or prod something that I'm going to eat, it better be a thermometer.
Right. So I'm seeing this profound metaphor for working on your motorcycle. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. So you got to have your toolbox. So you need a good knife. You need a good thermometer. You need a good, you want to do some work on your bike. A torque wrench is essential. Some Allen wrenches. There's some zip ties. You got to have some zip ties.
Got to have zip ties.
In the kitchen, it's side towels. You got to have a good dry terry cloth towel. And so you start hoarding your towels. So you got your chef knife, your thermometer, your towels, your vegetable peeler that you buy that's the oddest color so no one steals it, a spoon, a good spoon to serve with. And for me in the kitchen, it's a flat edged wooden spoon. A round wooden spoon is good for beating the kids, I guess. But for cooking, you got to have a flat wooden spoon. And for me, that's like, I can't cook without it. And so that's kind of like in my toolbox, as important as being on the bike and having that, a basic tool roll with, some wrenches and some zip ties, a flashlight, tire pressure gauge. These are things that I cannot live without.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if it seems less pressing if you're in New York City, but maybe if you're out in the middle of Arizona somewhere. So when do you leave? Or do you have that date picked yet?
Oh, when do I leave?
Yeah.
Well, you got the big birthdays coming up here in August. August. Yeah. August 18th, I'll be turning 40 years old. Now, my friends have let me make some concessions. It's a little warm in the central United States around August.
That's what I hear.
So we've also thought about, okay, maybe, we could do like a late September, October, but yeah, it's coming up. I got my friend Trevor. I did a road trip video to Massachusetts, and my friend Trevor rode with me. So you can see that one on YouTube. He's got a helmet. He doesn't have a bike. He's got the helmet.
I think you're wise not to do this in August. You may recall, I interviewed a woman named Kendall Wright back in the summer who was doing a sort of a lap of the U.S.
Yeah.
So then I followed her trip on Instagram, which was just kind of riveting. And the part of the journey where they were riding through the desert sounded like hell on earth. I couldn't believe how hot
Yeah.
it was. And they had air cooled bikes, as yours is. So yeah,
Yeah. And
maybe
they're
not
just,
August.
but then it doesn't matter how cool you are when you're out of gas in the middle of the night.
That's right. That is right. So I actually wanted to ask you about your bike. It's because maybe it's just because I'm kind of a nerd about Italian bikes. But recently I was listening to a podcast that I love called Motorcycles and Misfits, and somebody on that podcast said the only reason that you've never had a Moto Guzzi is because you've never had a Moto Guzzi. People get so attached to Guzzis, and I think they're awesome bikes. I've ridden one in California and kind of loved. I mean, it just had so much character,
Mm-hmm.
but they've so such a distinct personality. How did you end up on a Guzzi?
You know, it was always kind of gonna be the Guzzi. Oh man, I've seen the V7, the newer one, and it kind of just, they did a good job of the retro remake that's been so popular. So you've got the Bonnevilles, and now BMW's got their their racer, and they all look great. I love the way, I think it was Billy Joel. He's got his motorcycle museum in New York. And Billy Joel said, "I love the way old things look, but I like the way new things work."
Right, so true.
And I'm commuting every day, so I can't exactly get a 1976 Guzzi Le Mans and think I'm going to be able to start it every day, and I just don't have the patience for that. It just the Moto Guzzi V7, it looked really cool. For me, it's Italian, and I'm Italian, and I love Italy, and it was always going to be an Italian bike. I started off, about a decade ago, really wanting a Ducati Monster, and just thought that was the coolest bike. And then this kind of wild card underdog of a motorcycle came on the scene, and everybody in New York, well, not everybody, but you see a lot of Triumphs, you see a lot of Bonnevilles, and that's a cool bike. And you see a lot of Ducatis. You see a lot of Harley Davidson Sportsters. See those, a lot of guys are on those, but you don't see too many Guzzis. Now, if that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm still not sure. But I'm always the one that's gonna want to be a little bit outside of the regular group. And so I took a look at one, sat on a couple, and it just seemed to be the right fit economically. It was the right one for me. The V7, it's really, one of the cheaper bikes to get on, kind of a entry level.
Yeah.
And I didn't want something that was going to be too nice because New York City just beats it up, so I didn't want to get some just beautiful European bike and spend a lot of money on something, and then it's going to have that New York patina.
Right.
So the amount of shiny bits on a Guzzi is minimal. And it has the shaft drive instead of a chain, which is better, because I ride, right up until there's snow on the ground.
Right.
I'll be out in the pouring rain riding. So that's just kind of one less thing to worry about, except that it's a Moto Guzzi. So, sometimes with the humidity changing in the East Coast, you'll have what looks like mayonnaise coming out of the back wheel because humidity caused the oil to emulsify. So again, not sure if the shaft drive is a good thing or a bad thing, but I still love the bike. And it's different, and it's like it's a head turner, and you get a lot of people coming up like, "What is that?" And that's Moto Guzzi. Wow, man, that's cool. Or you get my favorite was this little old man, maybe 90 years old, came up to me and goes, "Is that a Moto Guzzi?" And he had this accent. I said, "Yeah, it is." He goes, "Oh, I used to ride on one of those. And I'm originally from Ireland, but then I moved to London in the 60s, and I'd ride around on my Moto Guzzi." And I'm like, "You were in London in the 60s? That must have been a great time," because it was an absolutely amazing time.
No doubt.
Picture this guy on his Guzzi, and it's like the people that that know Gucci, they love it. And you know, I think about, you know, what's the next bike going to be, and I could go and, you know, there's a lot of great new bikes, and I like all the styles, but then I always go back like, oh yeah, you know, that red 76, 78 Le Mans, that Moto Guzzi Le Mans, the red with a little orange on the front of the fairing.
Yeah.
Like, that's the bike.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah. There is nothing else like them. And by the way, I just take my hat off to anybody who can ride a Sportster in Manhattan. You must be made of steel. The people who do.
Yeah,
that,
man, they do it. They do it. They do it in style, man. You can hear them coming. You know, they got the Sportsters that, you know, there's the guys with the big GSs. They, you know, they're around. You know, and the Gucci's cool too, is because, you know, well, not cool. It's cool in a not cool way. You know, there's, you know, people get the bikes stolen here. But I'm pretty sure they see mine and don't know what it is or how they're going to fence it. So they just keep going to the next guy.
There's no secondary market, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
yeah.
fantastic.
Like, are you going to sell a stolen Gucci? Who wants that?
Well, I don't know if if you're prepared to accept that you might be developing a personal brand. But I can't imagine the meat and motorcycles guy on anything other than a Gucci at this point. Are you good with that?
You know, if meat and motorcycles became a thing that people wanted to see, that would be awesome. I have a lot of fun doing it. So yeah, you know, I would love a lot of people to see meat and motorcycles, and, you know, it could go on all kinds of trips. You know, and if I could combine, it's like I said, you know, going on those trips to meet those craftsmen and those farmers and those people that are working hard, and kind of share that experience, that, you know, it seems like a pretty, I know I'm not the only one doing it, but it seems unique in a way that I think it would be a fun story that people would connect to, whether it's because it's a motorcycle or because it's food or because it's just, you know, a good story about, you know, good people. Then I would be excited to do more of that.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I said, I'm turning 40 and I'm working in the kitchen. It's a young man's game.
Yeah,
it's a young man's game.
Oh, I can't imagine. I think you told me that that motorcycles and food are the only two things you think about, and it's probably good that you're hedged against the former.
Yeah, yeah. When I'm in the kitchen, all I'm thinking about is getting on the bike, and then when I'm on the bike, I'm just thinking about food, and work.
So maybe that takes us to a good question to wrap this up on. As I think I said earlier, I don't know that I'm ever going to have a chance to talk to a motorcycle riding chef again, or maybe not often. So I want to kind of put you on the spot and ask, what, in your opinion, is the perfect meal at the end of a ride? If I'm going to be that guy walking into the restaurant with my helmet in my hand, sitting down at the table, what is, in your opinion, the thing I should order?
Ooh. Okay. So let's set the tone now. We've gone on a long ride. We're done for the day. Okay.
Yep.
We're not. It's not just stopping in. We're done for the day. We're a little tired, but we're still feeling good because we're energized. We come into the little Italian restaurant, and you just point at the guy and say, "Red." And he says, yes. And you get that glass of wine. And then I would start with just a nice linguine and clams. It's light. It's not too heavy. It's got flavor. And just you get the pan nice and hot, and you put some garlic and some onions in it. Let it sizzle. You hear the pop of the onions when they hit the oil. And then you put your clams in. And you hear that sizzle of the water coming out of the clams. And then you get your white wine in there and deglaze it. Put a little bit of chili flakes in there, maybe. Put the pan on top. Let it kind of open up. Let them cook. The pasta's in the water. And then the pasta's coming out of the water that's been salted, so you got a little flavor in the pasta. And then put the pasta right in the pan. Give it a couple tosses. Maybe a couple more chili flakes for fun. Maybe a little bit of butter to cut the wine. And then just put it in a big steaming bowl, and then just put your head over that bowl and just breathe in that steam coming off the clams. Got that smell of the sea, and then just sit there and just have a solid bowl of linguine and clams, and a nice glass of red wine. I break the rule, but a good Chianti and a nice, solid, juicy bowl of sloppy linguine and clams. Like that sounds to me like the most rewarding thing after a nice long ride.
Oh, my mouth is watering.
And then, yeah. And then a single espresso.
Outstanding.
Right at the end.
Outstanding.
Just to get you home, And you can put a little call it cafe correctos or a little grappa or a little sambuca in there. Since we're done for the day, after all.
Yeah, after all.
Yeah. But that is a good motorcycle meal for me. For anybody else, a nice steak, a nice medium rare steak, just a little olive oil, salt and pepper, sliced really thin and a drizzle of really, really nice extra virgin olive oil. That's like, people don't know how good olive oil is. They've never had the good stuff. But spend a little money on olive oil and get that olive oil. It's a little grassy and it tastes like a fresh cut lawn with a little bit of pepper. And you put that on a nice, perfectly cooked steak for an animal that eats grass. It's really one of the most rewarding things. You know what? First course linguine and clams, and then we're gonna go second course ribeye, medium rare with extra virgin olive oil. We're gonna have a multi-course meal.
Okay. All right. So I don't know where we're going to find somebody who can cook all that, but if you're ever in my neck of the woods, that's what we're going to do. Okay?
I will gladly come up there and we will do a meet in motorcycles up there, and I'll make you dinner and we'll talk motorcycles some more.
That sounds like tons of fun. And this has been tons of fun. Guy, I can't thank you enough.
It's a blast.
It's just great.
It's been a blast.
Likewise. So ride safe, stay warm, and let's stay in touch. And when you're ready to head out on this trip, man, I'm gonna be following you every step of the way.
You stay up, shiny side up, rubber side down, and if you're ever in the city, please come and let me cook for you.
Guaranteed. Thanks, man.
All right, brother. Talk to you later.
Bye now. When Guy and I sat down to talk, I guess I kind of expected we were going to have a simple conversation about road food. Eating is, after all, part of the romance of the road, and I figured an Italian chef who loves to ride would have some things to say about how to do it with style and sprezzatura. But it's always a mistake to take a motorcyclist at face value. We've all got stories to tell, and Guy's didn't turn out to be about what he orders when he escapes New York City on his bike and stops at a small-town diner. It's almost worth rewinding this to listen again to his description of the perfect post-ride meal. That's where this conversation really came together for me, because it was a reminder of the intense joy that comes from mastering something while you're still passionate about it. That's the kind of rider I want to be. Until then, if gearing up and thumbing the starter ever begins to feel even a little bit routine, I'm going to find somebody who can make me linguine with clams. And I'll listen to those onions pop, and I'll smell that garlic. And I'll let it teach me again that, as with most things in life, the secret to keeping passion alive is to never lose the thrill of anticipation. Well, thanks for listening. You'll find show notes on this episode at thismotorcyclelife.com. And that's how you can also reach me if you have comments, questions, or suggestions. You can find me on Instagram at thismotolife, where I like to post pictures of bikes I find on the street, especially the ones in front of restaurants. To take us home, here's a recommendation for your This Motorcycle Life playlist. As a tribute to this episode's Italian flavor, this is the Brindisi from Verdi's La Traviata, a little opera never hurt anybody. A Brindisi, it turns out, is a drinking song, a toast to good company, which is kind of perfect. This performance is by the MIT Symphony Orchestra. Check it out wherever you like to get your music, and in the meantime, keep staying alive out there.